Hi. Hello. Hi. 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 We're here. The Script Daddies are here. I am your host, Carly.
And I'm your host, Colin.
And what do we do here, Colin?
Well, here at Script Daddy, we read scripts, watch the movies, and discuss the difference between script and screen.
Yes, we do. And today is so special because we have a special guest, our first guest, which is very, 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 very exciting. Spade Robinson. She's joining us today here at Script Daddy. Hi, Spade.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
We are so excited. We're both sweating.
Sweating from excitement and heat.
Yeah. Exactly. It's both. Spade, you're going to sit and listen to me give your credentials for a sec. Okay. You're welcome to add on any gorgeousness, but Spade is an award-winning filmmaker and a story consultant. She is the owner of Atlanta Film Project, a consulting firm servicing storytellers and companies to help them tell the best version of their stories. Hello, obsessed. She's consulted for Sundance Institute, Film Independent, Fox Networks, Disney, a little thing called HBO, and much more. She is a film professor at Belmont University and University of Arkansas, and she also has a workbook you can buy online called Script from Scratch, which is a step-by-step workbook for developing a feature screenplay. By the way, Spade, I'm mad at Amazon right now because I ordered it, and it was supposed to get here a couple days ago, and it's not here. I am pissed. It's late, and that is not on you. That is Jeff Bezos, and Bezos, if you're listening, it's unacceptable.
Unacceptable. I will do you one better and send you the digital version, and that way you can have both.
Obsessed, and I love you already. Thank you so much.
And you have a new workbook coming out soon as well.
What?
I do.
Final draft method?
Yes, the final draft method, because the rewriting process is really the crux of it, right? Like, how many drafts are you going to write till you get to the draft that you're going to send out? Let's just hurry this thing up, right?
Yes, God. Colin and I have been talking a lot about rewriting recently, and I feel like I need a new word because lately I feel like the rewriting I'm doing is actually refinement, and it isn't actual full drafts. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it is not from top to bottom rewrites, but it is like a lot of surgical going in and going like, I'm going to switch this, I'm going to change that, but it doesn't feel like it holds the same heaviness or burden that sometimes like a full final draft can have. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. Yeah, because you're still developing. That's the thing. People think development is like this little bit impressive, but you're developing all the way through. You get smarter. You talk to smarter people. You have life epiphanies. Things become outdated. So you have to go in and do surgery, you know?
Exactly.
I love that so much. And I feel like that is so the way Colin and I are like that. We have really come into that, especially since we started this, where we're like open to the inspiration coming in now in ways that feel like free of restraint. I feel like for a while I felt like I still had the certain rules that some of it was my own shit. It wasn't even like industry stuff, like just my own shit of like, well, I should do it this way. And it's like, I feel like I didn't have a ton of those, but I feel like the ones that I had have kind of gone out the window since we've been doing this, because there's such a freedom in seeing how many different ways you can do this thing.
Yeah.
And how it can be done so well, so many different ways. And like, and for myself, like allowing intuition and like that to come in has only made my storytelling like that much more interesting, I think, because I'm just so much more open to like what we said the other day, Colin, from Blue Valentine, like inspired, what was it? Inspirational interactions. Inspirational interactions is what the writer of Blue Valentine said he used while he was rewriting that script for like 67 times. He was like, I used a lot of inspirational interactions, and that like blew the lid off my brain. I was like obsessed.
I'm so curious if writing to you is like the same as parenthood. Like, you know how when you first have a kid, there's like rules and regulations, this, do with this, and then you get in it and you're like, actually, 2 ounces is not going to work because she's still. So we're going to have to put something else in this formula, right? Like, is it kind of like that?
Might have just hit on the most phenomenal correlation of all time. It's exactly like that. It's like you need, oh my God, it's exactly like that, because I think for me, I can only speak for myself, but like for me with motherhood and parenthood, it was like I needed to know the rules to then figure out what I felt comfortable then completely going astray from. But then the other things that were like, absolutely, like, I need to know how many times my baby is supposed to poop the first few weeks. I'm like, if that's healthy, like there's certain things you just need to know and you got to follow. But the more I trusted myself as a parent, the more you absolutely find what works for you, where it doesn't matter what you see online, your doctor, your pediatrician, it's like you start to find what that absolutely. So much of parenthood is like inspired interactions, to be honest, that's an absolutely stunning correlation that you just made. So hello, genius. How do you do?
Hi, guys.
Okay, so there is one you have to go, if you're listening, you have to go look at all of Spade's content, because the fact that you have so much gorgeousness for free is really something. So if you're listening, go dive in and then buy her book. But you had a post that stuck out to me because I am an absolute freak for dialogue. Like dialogue is, for me, is like what I love writing most, what I'm naturally best at. I think from my acting background just makes it a little bit easier for me. But also like it's what I'm most obsessed with so often in other scripts and films and all that stuff. And you had a post about why good dialogue isn't about words. You talk about how real people rarely say exactly what they mean. Can you expand on this a little bit? Because it was such a gorgeous, gorgeous anecdote that I would love for our listeners to get a little something from it.
Yeah. So why do we make movies, right? We reflect what it feels like to be alive. And then the movies that we're obsessed with, the ones that we watch over and over again, remind us of our own humanity. Okay. So then how do we accomplish that? And I think when it comes to dialogue, we're looking for a reflection of all the tensions that we have. Because human beings rarely say what they mean, because we start out that way, but then at some age, we learn to like curb that. And then our words become tools, right? So how do I get what I want? And I know I come from an acting background too. So I know we learn about like getting what we want and using things as tools. What is our motivation? So we learn through, how we're taught or trauma or whatever, how to use words as tools. So if I learn that children are to be seen and not heard, and that when I cry or when I am loud, nobody listens to me, then I usually may use like my silence to pick up something and throw it as a tool of communication. That's my language as a character. Whereas another character who's been supported and loved and all of that, and everything they say, their parents are hanging on their every word, they are a lot more likely to like say exactly what they mean. So then you take these two characters who have very different languages and put them in a situation where they have to communicate with each other, then you have this beautiful way that represents how we in real life end up communicating. Because I think one of the most interesting things to do is to watch characters talk around each other. And they're having two very different conversations. And so when you're writing, you figure out this character's way of talking, their language, and this character's language, then you never run into a situation where all my characters sound alike, or the scenes aren't moving the story forward, or I can't have enough subtext. That just sort of nips that in the bud.
I mean, gorgeous.
Hello?
Absolutely gorgeous, yes.
Absolutely, especially because if you think about like your closest relationships and even the people that you're closest with, there are times where like in conflict, you can literally know someone so well and still be like, how are we having two different conversations right now? Like, how are you interpreting what I'm saying? So that's the other thing too, is interpretation. Even if you are saying what you mean, that doesn't account for the emotional layers that someone else is hearing it through. There's times where you could literally just say like, I'm worried about you, and someone else is like, oh, so I'm the worst person ever. And you're like, hello?
Right.
That's quite literally not what I said.
You're having the whole conversation in your head. And I think what's really interesting about watching movies, that when a writer has like their hand, you know how like in the theater, there's like these strings, right? When a writer has their hands so closely on the script and the characters, you can see what they let the audience know and what they don't let the audience know. So as a writer, if I let the audience know a little bit about this person's background, I can understand how they're perceiving it. But if I withhold the background from another character, then I'm teaching the audience who to identify with. It's just so juicy and fun. And like, I don't know, you get to play doctor in all these crazy ways.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, you do. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, you bringing up like the importance of what we're not shown as well kind of really makes me think about some of my notes and observations from the film that you chose for today's episode. That's one of my
Yes.
things in my wrap up of reading the script. And so just for the script babies to let them know the process, when Spade reached out to be on the podcast, we wanted to give her the full Script Daddy experience, and we wanted Spade to pick the movie that we did today. So Spade, would you like to tell the listeners what movie we're doing and why you picked that?
Yes. So I chose Nickel Boys. And the reason why I chose it was because this podcast does such a brilliant job of making a separation between the script and the movie. And these are two different art forms with two different sets of artists, right? And so they end up becoming a documentation of one way of telling a story and another way. And it's just so rare that you get to have that kind of conversation. With Nickel Boys in particular, it's directed in such a unique, different way. And I hadn't read the screenplay. And so I wanted you guys to be the ones that I discussed the difference between what I ended up seeing in such a quiet movie, it's a very quiet movie, to like what ends up happening on the page.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Also, we're honored.
Yes, like truly honored. Thank you.
Truly honored.
Because one thing that surprised me was that this film is nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Film in 2024. And somehow I had never heard of it. Like, it's such a stunning story. And it's stunning film.
It's crazy. One of my closest friends texted me out of the blue and was like, have you seen this movie? You have to see it. And I remember that my son was going through a gnarly sleep regression at the time. And I remember thinking like the odds of me going to a movie theater are so slim that I literally like forgot. And then when you brought it up, I was like, oh my God, my friend mentioned this. But then like Colin said, when we were doing the research, I was like, what? How was this not, especially with Plan B behind it too? It's just like, and I hope that us doing this gets it out there to more people because it's a movie that needs to be seen.
Yeah.
Especially in today's times.
Yeah.
100%. Okay, so I'm going to get into the just the quick stats, and then we will dive in. Okay, so as previously mentioned, we are doing Nickel Boys. It came out December 2024. So not that long ago. That I thought it was longer than that. The logline is from IMDb, and if you're listening, you know that Colin and I struggle a little bit with the loglines, but it's what we have. The logline is a powerful friendship between two Black men as they navigate the harrowing trials of reform school together. You know, not the best, not the worst logline we've ever heard, but we're going to move on. The director is Ramel Ross. He is a director and a cinematographer. He did not do the cinematography on this, but I thought it was really interesting to see that like literally 50-50 of his career is cinematography and directing, which I thought was just so interesting. The cinematographer was Jomo Frey. The screenwriters were Ramel Ross, Jocelyn Barnes, and it was based on the book by Colson Whitehead. And it stars, I looked this up, and Spade, if you know it, please correct me. I always get anxiety about saying people's names wrong on here. Ethan, I looked it up. It's spelled Herisse, and I have seen 3 different pronunciations on the internet. One guy said Herisse, someone else said Arise. I don't know. I just don't know. But either way, fantastic.
Yeah.
And I was literally looking up interviews to like hear him say it, but he was only ever like, I'm Ethan. And I was like, what's your last name? Come on.
Right.
Also starring Brandon Wilson and Ingenue Elise Taylor. Oh my God. I loved her. I loved her in Lovecraft Country. And the second I saw her, I was like, oh my God, she's so fantastic. The budget was $23.2 million. The gross was somewhere between 2 and 2.6 million. They didn't fully verify it. And the trivia is, it's minimal other than it was Academy nominated for Best Picture and Best Adapted Screenplay. The book won a Pulitzer Prize for Fiction in 2020. And then it says, in an interview with Vanity Fair, director Ramel Ross states that the film is conceived as all oneers. In one scene, we shot everything from Elwood's perspective and then everything from Turner's, one from the first hour and then the other for the second. Very rarely do we shoot both perspectives on a scene, though, because of the way it was written and scripted. We don't always go back and forth. So it's shot like a traditional film, except the other character is not there. They're just asked to look at a specific point in the camera, typically the other actors behind the camera, reading the lines and being the support to make the other person feel like they're actually engaged with something relatively real. Because they're all oneers, though, the choreography was quite difficult. And then lastly, most importantly, the reform school depicted here is modeled on the notorious Dozier School of Boys, a Florida school that was effectively little more than a prison where abuse ran rampant throughout the years, operating from 1900 to 2011. Although there is no clear-cut figure, it is estimated that about 100 boys were killed during the school's history, all buried in unmarked graves. Absolutely horrendous and horrific.
I was reading some of the...
warn you guys to take a shot of tequila before watching the film, but I forgot. Sorry.
You know, fair.
Yep.
Okay, so Spade, because you are our gorgeous guest, we are going to start with your Script Daddy score for the script, and then just a little something about your initial feelings about the script.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to give... Okay, I'll give you a caveat. So both Jocelyn and Ramel come from the documentary world. That's kind of how I was first introduced to them. And I think it shows a lot in the way that this film was made and written. I give the script 8.5. And I think it's such a beautiful story. It's a dense script. When I first saw it, I was like 123 pages. It breaks every single rule that I teach. It feels, and I mean this in like some of the best ways, it feels overwritten. It's the director directing from the page. So many of the characters like finish their whole sentences when it just feels like it should be chopped off in some places. It's a script that a director would write. I mean, so it did break almost every rule. I think, though, when the director is going to direct it and wrote it, it gives you a lot of that space. And because it's such a visually different film, a lot of it really did have to be explained. But I think if I were just sending this out, like if I was just going to send it to my manager and be like, hey, can we send this out? Can we take this out? They would be like, absolutely no.
Yeah.
No.
Agreed. Yeah.
And that's one of the interesting things that Colin and I come up against a lot with the podcast is that like there are so many great scripts where we're like, this is great, don't replicate it. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Not that anything's wrong, because I'm excited to get into so much of what's right about this script. Because like you said, it's rule breaking, but done in a very interesting way. Excuse me. But like, it is funny how sometimes you're like, but I wouldn't necessarily say to like an up and coming screenwriter to replicate this in any form. You know what I mean? It's an interesting space to occupy.
I would tell my students, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. and I think the amount of hand holding that the script does has to communicate to everybody involved that this is what we're doing in a way that I think a more traditional script won't. So I tell my students all the time that a screenplay is a map. More than anything, it's an art form, it's this, it's that, but more than anything, it's a map for production. It has to communicate to all the department heads what exactly we're making. And I think the script breaks a lot of rules in order to do that, to make it a map.
Totally agree. Colin, what was yours, darling?
Okay, so you know how I write my little assessment of the script. So my script score is 8 out of 10. And this is what I wrote after reading it. I said, this script is monumental. It's raw, bold, and incredibly well written. Since the entirety of the narrative takes place in point of view, the writers do an excellent job of showing and not telling, perfectly illustrating the stakes early on while still leaving space for what we don't know but can infer, which engages your emotions quickly and makes you care about Elwood right from the start, making the tragic ending even more gut-wrenching. By utilizing juxtaposition, incorrect assumptions and vivid specificity, the writers weave a haunting yet beautifully resolute story that will stay with me long after reading. While I did find myself getting lost on the page a bit due to lots of large paragraphs of action and multiple characters being introduced without much description, the overall style of the screenwriting kept me emotionally and intellectually engaged the entire time. It's quite unlike any other script I've ever read.
Yeah.
Yep. pretty much. Yeah, nailed it. I don't even know what I could add to that.
I mean, it's just so unique, and it's
unique.
Also, like the last, I told Carly yesterday, the last like 4 pages of the script, I literally read like a mouth agape. Like there's so many like visceral, chilling moments in this script. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely like a work of art in so many ways.
My Script Daddy score is 8.6. I literally agree with everything you guys said. I felt like one of the things I really loved about it was that it felt like it's tackling this enormous thing, but juxtaposed with a ton of really quiet moments and observations, which was done so masterfully. Like the weaving of those two things to know the stakes of what's going on and have real history, real images, real all of that throughout it. But that so much of the time we spend in the script and then ultimately in the film, but like in the script, so much of what I picked out to like mention is just the most simple description of like washing a dish, but it's like those moments that grounded it for me, because it's like we don't typically get that many of those moments in one script. We usually get a couple of those, and those are like our grounding moments, but this script is almost like mostly that. There's not that much dialogue in the film, and so there are moments that do feel like slightly overwritten or a little bit like one for me in particular was like the boxing scene. I got really lost on the page in the boxing scene, and I felt frustrated because it felt like such a pivotal moment that then in the movie it was so clear and it hit me exactly where it needed to. But I was so kind of blown away by the ambitiousness of the script, and that while there were things that did get a little bit confusing at times, in general, I felt the confidence of the writers knowing that they had such a specific vision for this thing that any moments that I felt confused on the page, I knew I wouldn't feel that way in the film. I knew that because of the confidence of what they were doing. Do you know what I mean?
I agree. It's the voice of the writer that makes it feel, or writers, that makes it feel like I can trust the journey that I'm on. Like, you're going to take care of me all the way to the end.
Absolutely.
And there's like one small thing that I think is so incredibly important that translates both from the script and the movie, which is just the tenderness of these boys,
Yes.
like falling in love for the first time and them being boys. Like you are so, that's why, like, even with the log line, I don't love the word men, because they were boys. And I feel like both the script and the movie are very clear about their innocence and their youth, and what that means in a story like this one.
Almost to the point, did you guys, well, Spade, you saw it first, but Colin, did you, when in the script, I pictured them even younger at Nickel. So then in the film, they're still very young. But they were a little bit older than what I was envisioning when I was reading it, because of what you're saying, Spade. The tenderness and the youthfulness was so potent that I was almost like, oh, they're taller than I thought.
Yeah. It's really, it's there's so many moments that are like the stark, like I said, there's so many juxtapositions that they use in this film. Like, one thing that I thought was really interesting was how they keep showing and cutting to, in the script and in the movie, to the Apollo 8 like moon landing and everything, and like this great moment of excitement and this great like achievement that America has, and then going back and seeing these horrible atrocities that are happening to these innocent boys who had their futures stolen away from them because of racism. And it's just like, it's that tenderness that you're talking about, like on the page, it's like, it puts you in this, like, you can't help but feel paternal over them, because it's like, or for me, paternal, because they really set them up to, like you said, Spade, to be so innocent and just a victim of circumstance. And it's stunning and just so like heartbreaking too.
Truly.
But also shows like there's like also a level of not necessarily hope, but like showing like resilience of like human spirit that they make sure to tag in there, especially when you get to the end. But yeah, it was really incredible.
Okay, what, Spade, is your movie score?
So this movie is 10 out of 10 for me. And in its connection to the script, I especially somebody who like works in artist development, my question is always, did this accomplish what the filmmaker was trying to accomplish? And I feel like he knocked it out the park. There's a high level of ambition in terms of the perspective, in terms of the shooting style, in terms of the pacing, in terms of the slow movement of the story, in terms of the quietness. There's all these things that we're told not to do, but are important for this narrative. And I've never seen anything like this. My first, job in film, my first major job in film was in documentary. And I always encourage filmmakers and screenwriters to somehow do something nonfiction, because once you figure out how to wrangle real life, because you don't have any control over it when you're making a documentary, and you have to somehow make it compelling. So once you have to like wrangle real life into something that makes sense and then it's still good, when there's a story that you have full control over, it's like slicing through butter. And that's, I think, is a powerful thing for screenwriters and filmmakers just to do as a practice. And I think this is a perfect example of that. Because you don't know if it's going to work. But once you are day one of production, you got to make it work. And I think he did. I can't say enough about these performances. I think from top to bottom, they were just stellar, authentic, and important in the way that I didn't feel like, I think with boys, particularly Black boys that are teenagers, there's all of this that's thrust upon them in terms of them being like hyper masculine or hyper sexualized or threatening. And then you have these boys who live it in this body, especially the character who played Elwood, and this body that's tall and big and dark. And he's just this child. One of the more pivotal parts in the story is when he still has this belief that Dr. King is going to like save everyone and change everything. And you want to be like, oh, baby.
Yeah.
No, that's not going to happen. The hope of the grandmother, I think the way that she played that, and the way that she's everybody's grandmother, was just so powerful and haunting. And my favorite things about endings is when they are both inevitable and surprising. And that marriage works so well in this movie.
Oh, girl. But that also, what you just said, like, can we take 2 seconds? Because abso-freaking-lutely, yes.
Right?
Yes. That is so, when it feels inevitable, but also a surprise. Like,
right.
Hello. You just like casually dropped a huge nugget of gold and then kept walking.
Both, right? You want it to feel earned, but you don't want anybody ahead of you. And usually I get it. I mean, I could watch a trailer and be already at the credits, right? Totally. And I just, having not read the novel, I just didn't see this. I mean, it can't. It's you're so invested that it's impossible. That can't be it. And it's it. I think also the place that romantic love lives in this story is so important to see, like young Elwood and falling in love for the first time with this girl, but then also this character who lived through all this trauma, having to go through several different loves in order to figure out how to love and be loved. you can't take that out of the trauma of being Black in America, because there are these fuller lives that I think is not included in a lot of these stories. It's just trauma, 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 trauma. But there's a softness and there is a sweetness to these experiences, and particularly for men. Now, I am not a male apologist, so I know that, we don't always want to give men all the credit due to some of the privileges. But at the end of the day, I think this story in particular, but overall, holding space for watching men learn how to love and be loved is so rare to see on the screen that I'm just, every time I see it, I'm like, more of this, more of this, more of this. How can we be more honest about what this feels like and what the conflicts are? And particularly when you talk about two Black people learning how to love each other and bringing all of their own trauma and being like, okay, well, how do I find a place to be vulnerable when I've been fighting the world all day? And all of that is said and not said at all.
And it's done with such tenderness too. Like you said, like there's just a tenderness around it so much.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's handled with great care.
But all right, Colin, what was your movie score, darling?
Okay, I gave 9.5 out of 10. And this is what I wrote after watching. It said, this movie is devastating and so deeply necessary. As someone who grew up in the South and witnessed the deep-seated racism that's rampant there and elsewhere in this country, I think that this is a film that everyone should witness. The film is a bit more streamlined than what's on the page, but all the style and interesting choices really shine through and add to the layered messaging and symbolism that's on the page. One of the most beautiful things I noticed, especially with the film, is seeing the perseverance of people who've survived horrible situations. Despite the abuse and mistreatment, Elwood and Turner still find ways to create entertainment and hope for themselves against all odds. And while the film is ultimately tragic, it also shows that we can experience deep struggle and not only survive, but build back and heal and use our experience as a catalyst for change. In the face of rising white nationalism that's being spurred on by our top government officials, now more than ever is the time for films like this.
Yep.
Beautifully said.
Beautifully said. Truly, my score is a 9.8 out of 10. And I just felt like everything I loved about the script, I loved even more in the film, in that like that initial feeling of like confidence I felt from the writer then was like so freaking clear on the screen, where it was like the biggest thing that I couldn't get over, that I thought was so powerful, was how they managed to make a movie that is majority POV, literally like you are the camera, you look down and those are your hands, how they managed to make that intimate when we are so accustomed to intimacy being really close-up shots, close eyes, mouths, bodies touching. There's so little touching in this film, and there's so few really tight shots, and yet there is an intimacy that you feel so much of the film that like shook me. I could not get over that. It was like and I also just kept thinking like, this is one of the most original films I've ever seen in my entire life. And the fact that it found a way to have a fiction narrative, but then fully include of multiple realities, and also have, like you said, Apollo 13, and then cut to symbolism, like literally just symbolism, or just we're then all of a sudden going to have a stunning shot of the sky. And like the way that it all works together was just so inspiring to me. I felt so inspired that they held the vision that they did, and they executed it so stunningly.
Okay, should we get into some script
Let's
now?
get into some script notes. Okay, Spade, lead the way.
Yes. Okay. So, I think my first knee-jerk reaction had to do with the just like the page number alone. It's 123 pages with a few of the scenes omitted. So I don't know how many pages it was like in the original version, but that can be overwhelming, particularly like if you are reading a lot of scripts. And then jumping right in, I think it took me a while to get into it because it didn't like ease me into it in a way where it's like clinically introduces everybody and sets everything up. I'm like dropped in a scene and people are talking. They have a relationship with each other. I don't know what it is, which is great when it happens on camera. And I thought I, wanted a little bit more hand holding on the page.
Totally.
And then I realized that we didn't actually see Elwood until page 35.
Yeah.
So
isn't
then
that
I was
wild?
like, wow. And it was a big surprise when it happened in the film because I sort of experienced it backwards.
Same. That's so funny that you say that. I did too. It was like kind of shocking in an exciting way, but it was kind of shocking in the movie to go like, oh my God, we're just now like seeing him. Like you see him quickly in a reflection of like her iron, but that's it.
Yeah. And it's like almost like a breath of fresh air. Cause you know how like sometimes somebody will hold you in a holding pattern of tension. And this is almost that weird frustration in a good way where you like, you have an appetite for more.
Yes.
And then they give it to you. So I remember this also feeling feeling that same feeling in the script. But then as soon as I felt that, we jumped back into some of these like bigger chunks of action. And that feels like throughout all the way, that's kind of how it's handled. So it feels like a shooting script. I don't know if it feels like a script that I would have like tried to sell. And I feel like maybe that's the biggest difference here. And then by the time we get sort of into the third act, and it's structured a little non-traditionally, but by the time we get into the third act, I would have loved to see some pulling back on that so the pacing could feel quicker the same way it feels quicker towards the end. And my overall feeling with the script is that some of these things, when they're in and out, they don't cause the same level of like exhaustion that you may feel when they're like, okay, this is something I experienced and it's all the way throughout. I feel like this is one that's all the way throughout. And I remember the script feeling like the dialogue feels like you're giving me too much, but I never felt like that watching the movie. It felt sparse and natural and really good. I think here I'm experiencing the characters, I don't know, almost give us a few short monologues in the conversations that I think should be snappier. So those are some things I would have, like if I were giving it notes, I probably would have been like, okay, trim these things back. But I think when it comes to some of the really, really specific camera notes, it felt like, okay, I don't need this. But then I think in order to explain what your vision is, you probably needed a lot of that.
But what's interesting about it is I felt like I didn't like give up on the POVs reading it, but there were moments where I kind of went like, I don't know if we're seeing him or not. Like I was thinking more on the later half of the film when we were seeing adult Tanner. I was thinking we were seeing him. Like I kind of like lost that it was meant to be kind of not now. I also did love that they chose to do a back of the head POV at that point. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a really, really cool choice. But again, I was like, when I zoomed out even further, I was like, they do so many things in this film that like, if not done well, would be the clunkiest film of all time. That's what's so crazy is that you're like, even the POVs don't say the same. Like, and normally that would be upsetting, but in this film, I very much enjoyed it. And it also works towards the payoff of the surprise at the end. But like, and you feel discombobulated as him, as an adult, which I think was the feeling that you don't get in the script. You don't really get that same full discomfort that you get in the film when you're always slightly behind him. You feel how he almost doesn't feel fully in his body. He's figuring out whatever. So it was like such a strong choice, but anytime they would refer to anything like that on the page, it wasn't landing as much for me because it was so dense. Like there was so much that like after a while you could only read POV so many times before you're like, wait.
Where are we? Wait. Oh, right. Yeah.
Totally. I think my solve for that on the page would be to break the fourth wall for the reader a little bit at the very beginning and say the majority of this is going to be shown in POV. We're going to switch back and forth and then indicate that at the beginning. And then when it's like when they're eating there and that first time you see Elwood's face from Turner's perspective, then indicate Turner's POV so we know that we're cutting back and forth like that. But I did think it was interesting because I've never read a script that was all in POV. So when I first saw that, like after I read through the first page and then realized, I was like, oh, okay. So like we're seeing like what the shots that they're calling is that we're seeing it through his eyes, which should have been obvious when they say Elwood's POV. But like, I was like, okay, I'm on board. Like like a film all in POV, like, yes, God. I thought that was really, really interesting and a bold choice to make, but also what really hit through to me is like some of the action, like so much of the action is so gorgeously written. And while not every character has a character description, the very beginning, they do give you a description for his mom and dad who ultimately leave. And this is from page 1. I thought it was great. It was gorgeous character descriptions and action. And the character descriptions are really, really, really small and economical. But this is what it says. It says, Elwood's POV, from where he's sitting on his mother's lap, is concentrating on a drop of condensation on a can of beer on the table before him. Lights reflect on and off of the aluminum. A party is winding down. Cigarette butts in the ashtray. His mother, Evelyn, late 20s, slim, tired eyes. And his father, Percy, 30s, fit and restless. Play gin rummy with friends. A couple in the background is swaying in a boozy slow dance. The dewdrop begins to slide down the side of the beer can. Like, just like the little bit of like slim, tired eyes, fit and restless. Like, it's restless. I do love a more drawn out character description sometime, but also this was a good reminder that this is all you really need sometimes is just these little tiny characterizations of people. And that's another thing that they do really well is that there's different moments where they add like very specific actions in there that like add to a person's overall character. So it's like a character description through action. And so on page 2, this is the next time I saw it, it says just this one thing of like what the dad does. It says his large hand slams down on a beer can, crushing it. Elwood's gaze jolts a little, but holds on the can in its new form, then turns to look at Evelyn's hand, nails done but worn down, gripping a tumbler glass, swirling whiskey into a whirlpool at the bottom. Like the action of the dad, like crushing the can like that, tells you something about him. And I thought that was genius without having to say it in dialogue or something like that. There's so many moments like that. And I was like really impressed by that.
Yeah, when you can make that happen, I say go for it. I always loved, I call them character introduction scenes. The first time we meet someone, what can you tell me about their worldview or how they feel about themselves? I mean, it helps us understand how they're going to navigate through the rest of the story. And it's just...
Well, and when done well, I always say like that when it's done well, it's craft, because we've all read scripts where you get unearned information that feels almost invasive, where you're like, I don't feel like I should get to know that in the first sentence of this intro. So that's what's interesting is like, I completely agree with you. It's like, if you can give us something that speaks to them and some physical description of some sort, so I can like put a face to the movie and the person. But then again, like I have definitely had times, and like with clients too, where I'm like, I can't know that her mother died yesterday right now. Like she just walked in, and that feels
dinner first, like wine and
truly. And it's like, if you're getting that feeling as a reader, if you're going like, I have not earned this information at all. Instead, it could be like, there's a heaviness about her we don't quite understand. Okay, that can be acted. That is because I always say, like, Colin and I talk about this because when Colin and I write together, I'm always like, if you can indicate performance to an actor, not tell, but indicate heaviness, you can play. My mother died yesterday, you can't really play. You know what I mean? Like, if that's not what the scene's about, you can't really play that. But if we're talking about heaviness, then that's directing an actor or like indicating, you know, performance, which ultimately you're indicating the performance in your head as a reader. You're going, okay, I'll assign that little person in my head this mode.
Yeah. I never thought about it that way, but right. I can't play your trauma unless you give me an action that makes sense.
And there is always a way to do it. Like if someone is saying, like, for literally that, like, her mother died yesterday, we can earn that later in a more organic way. But all we need to know right now is that she's carrying a heaviness that we don't know why yet. That is infinitely more interesting, because then now I'm going, why is she carrying a heaviness? And now I want to know more about her. Whereas if you're just like, hey, you don't know this person from shit and their mom died yesterday and they're eating Subway, you're like, I don't even know if I like her.
Right. Yeah.
Because like the cause and of, like, we as humans, we view the world in terms of cause and effect. Like, that's just naturally how we see it. So when you're giving both of those pieces of information right up front, it takes away any mystery. Like you're saying, like with indicating heaviness, that's like, okay, that's the effect that's going on. What was the cause of that? Instead of being like, when you know, it just takes the wind out of the sails.
Well, no, what I was gonna say, exactly that. And also too, I just thought about it. Like, let's say you went to lunch with someone and they sat down across from you. It's even just like, what can you pick up from them if they're not using words to tell you how they're feeling yet? But what are you getting from them? And if it's like, we all have had moments where you sit down with a friend and you're like, something is off, but you're not going to go, did someone die? You know, like, it's more like, then that indicates like, you're going to go like, okay, I need to check in. There's a whatever, that it's like, it's the same thing with writing. It's like, how am I capturing how I feel in a moment when I've sat with someone and I can sense something doesn't seem right. And I'm gonna ease into it with them and earn that information and not just immediately assume like, yo, what's wrong? Like, oh, yeah.
Well. I think audiences want to, it's going to sound crass, I think audiences want to work for it.
I agree.
Yeah,
Spade, I agree.
If it's too easy, I'm going to go watch a kid's film. Even then they make you work for information and stuff like that too. But like, you want it, otherwise what's going to make you get emotionally on board? You know, if it's just all spoon fed to you, you got to work a little. And this movie really does make you work for information, because
it does.
What I loved was that it sets up so many expectations. And so it makes you draw assumptions about things, and then it rips that carpet out from under you. Like with one thing that I loved was that, like, also like the gaps of the information gaps that they give. So like in the very beginning, we see your Elwood experiencing it from his perspective. He's a child. There's this party going on. You don't really know what's happening. His parents feel a little distant with him and you don't know why. And then the mom gets up and goes to like help Hattie, his grandmother, clean up. And then in there, and in the movie, it's funny because on the page, it's much more easy to pick up on because it's right there in front of you. But in the movie, if you're not really listening, you're not going to hear what they say because there's other like environmental sounds going on. Mm-hmm. But Hattie says to her, I don't know if it's her daughter or whatever, but she says to her, she's like, are you going to tell him that you're leaving? And right there in that moment, you see this pathway. Like you thought, like, I just assumed like, oh, a happy family having a party. And then you see now that expectation, you see the fork in the road open up where now you know Elwood's parents are moving across the country. You don't know why they're not taking him along, and you don't know why they're not telling him, but you know how that's going to affect him and his journey moving forward. And then that's just buttoned up even more so that happens on page 3. Then on page 6, because you have these different kind of montage moments of Elwood going about his life after his parents leave him and he's now being taken care of by his grandmother. And there's this gorgeous moment that like broke my heart for Elwood when he walks in to see his grandmother sleeping there. And he's just wanting to make sure that she's still breathing. And you see this abandonment and how that is affecting this child. And then his mom, his grandmother tells him, she's like, I'm not going anywhere, honey. And that just like, I was like, oh my God, how beautiful to be able to put you into that mindset with this child very simply, like by just not telling you certain things or giving you only the information that they want you to know in that moment. It's just that like always blows my mind when a writer's able to really capture that. So well done.
So well said. And also too, like the other moments, they have such a beautiful relationship, and yet we don't have your on the nose specific moment where it's ooey gooey. It's like we're seeing how inclusive she is with him to her life and how much she involves him and makes joy out of simple things. Like the way they're having a blast while she's working and ironing and doing the thing with the sheets. Like as a parent too, I was like, that is so much of how you show your love to your child. Like I can only kiss my kid so many times before he goes, mama, you know, like that. It's like you have to find all the ways to show a child that you love them. And this movie, again, without having to go like, we're going to give this really ooey gooey moment. Instead, it's like the real life love of like how safe we feel watching them together and how safe we feel seeing the way she nurtures him and the way their connection. It was so essential for the rest of the story to hit the way it does.
And I feel like we forget that as writers, right? We lean into all of these dramatic moments that try and show like, okay, this should show this and this should show that and this should show that. When in reality, what ends up being more powerful are what's organic to the situation they're in. What is naturally going to happen? And then how does someone live inside of that natural moment that tells me everything I need to know about them and these relationships?
Totally. It's when you think, I mean, we're all wired so differently, but when I think about like moments that I like go back to in my head, a lot of times they're seemingly like, there's not a lot of words and like they're kind of quiet moments, but God was the energy so profound. Whereas like, that's not to say that you don't like, you know, hold on to moments where there is a lot of conversation, whatever, but it's like, that is such a good reminder, Spade, where it's like, yeah, like Colin and I talked about this, I think first season, how like so often one of the things that really hit me while doing this podcast is like, I think writers think the monologue is where they're going to get someone to cry, but most of the time it's a one-liner that they didn't even really think that much about. And and it's such an important, doesn't mean you should never have a monologue. It just means don't make your monologue be the basis of the emotion of the scene or the film, because a lot of times when someone is yapping that long, we're not, even if it's beautiful what they're saying or horrifying, like at some point we start to kind of like check out a little bit that it's like, yeah, like going through and finding those little tender moments where you're like, ooh, that would stick with you, that stays with you. It's not always these big declarations of love or whatever.
I have this moment that happened to me, I don't know, gosh, this was like maybe 3 or 4 or maybe more Christmases ago. We were having Christmas dinner at my sister's house and we were all coming out of the house and we had been drinking all day. And I was walking down her driveway. I think I stepped on, you know how they have those like holes in the ground? There's like a cover on it, but there's like nothing under it. So I like stepped on one of those and like kind of fell. I guess it kind of like toppled anyway. I guess my foot like stumbled in it and I fell. And I remember my older brother like looking at the thing and he was like, stupid thing. And he like kicked it. And I remember in that moment feeling like, really, it's going to sound crazy, but like really like protected. And like,
I love
really love that he like got mad at this like plastic thing in the ground on my behalf.
I love
and
that.
I feel like those are the moments in movies where you see what a relationship is like, but it's just life, but you get what these people mean to each other.
Yes, because you're willing to go to battle with a piece of plastic for the person you love. You're anthropomorphizing an inanimate object because it dared to trip your little sister. And you're like, fuck you. That is my sister. You do not do that.
Well, and like, again, not to like get into like the men and women, but like that being said, like women are far more likely to communicate their feeling, maybe not perfectly, maybe, and again, not everybody, but I'm saying like, that is so much more like it is easier, I think, sometimes to write scenes between women because we innately are more yappy. We're a little bit chattier.
We more, girl, I love you.
Yes, like, oh my God, I love you. And like then, but whereas like with men, it's like, what are some of the indirect ways that they show love? And that's a perfect example. They're getting mad at something that was in the way that could hurt you. Like, that's so real. I know.
That added layer, I'm like, oh.
I know. That's so, put that in something, girl.
Yes, for real though.
Write it down. That's the other thing, though, I have been doing lately. When I have the thought, write it down, my ass writes it. Well, I write it, not my ass. My hands write it down. But I write it down. Too many years, you guys, I was like, I'll remember that tomorrow. I'll remember that in the morning. No. I don't care if it's 2 a.m. You get your ass up, you grab your phone, and you give yourself a little nod for the next day. Because
put it in a notebook, figure it out, send yourself an email. But you will not remember.
I always do it with horror moments too. Like with scary moments, I have a note that's like good spook factor for creep factor is what I call it. Good creep factor for horror movies. And like I just write, like if something like I see is like, ooh, that freaked me out, I'll write it down or something.
That is so you, Colin, and I'm obsessed. Mine is what Spade just said. Mine is like, what's like a tender little moment I felt really seen that I could find a way to like put it
No, I need to start doing this more. I started making a list of like unlikely beautiful things. So like, I don't know how I ended up doing this, but one day I somehow got oil in the toilet and it made it so sparkly. I'm like, I'm gonna have, because it doesn't look like oil and water, it just looks like glitter. And I'm like, oh, I might have to use this one day. You know, like little things like that, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. To go back to the page for a sec, page 24, when Elwood is like playing with a string around his finger while he's kind of like hearing his fate in the background with his grandmother, like, and it's so devastating. And just hearing the panic in her voice and everything she's saying. And he's like, all we see is him just like pulling this string on his finger. And it's so descriptive. And then it says, pain, the only sensation that overrides fear in the face of incalculable loss. And I was like, I loved it because if a script does that all the time, I'm like, all right. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't do that a lot. The writers don't do that a lot. So when they do, it really lands because you're like, oh, that's that extra piece here that they're letting you know, like, this is what's going on. And again, because it's not overused, it's so effective.
Yeah.
I literally was like, oh, copy paste. I have to say this. Like, just so, because there's so many, again, small physical actions we watch Elwood do that we don't get a added addition of what that means. Like, most of the movie is not that. We're just watching him do stuff and, you know, feeling how we feel about it. But this was a moment where I was like, I appreciated that little extra sauce on it. I was like, yeah, that's a moment where you can put that there.
Very powerful. Like, here's another characterization that I thought was really interesting. On page 27, when Elwood's in the back of the cop car, the cop that's driving the car is eating chicken. And this line of action it was a characterization that showed that this man, like, I don't know, for me, it kind of telescoped like even more of like a callousness and casualty or casuality. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Like just him being so casual about ruining this kid's life. But it just says, Elwood stifles a grim laugh and looks up in the rear view. The officer glances at him in the mirror, rolls a chicken bone around in his mouth, then chucks out the window. Like just like rolls it around his mouth. It really brought me into that moment. You can like see that. And there's another moment where earlier in the movie where Elwood is out just walking and then they are being like inspected by a police officer. Like there's a lineup of like 3 black boys being inspected and they're taking this cane and they're poking it into their stomach, which when I saw that on it was disturbing on the page, but then seeing it from POV in a movie, I was like, God, that is so demeaning and disgusting. And then in the script, they make a point to say that the officer who's sitting watching this is sipping an orange soda. And just like just being so casual, just sipping a soda while you're racially profiling people. And then there's this through line throughout the movie of oranges that I saw. And like the thing that kind of brought through to me was like, Florida's known for its oranges and like orange juice, and like oranges are so delicious. And like you have orange juice in your breakfast and like DDD. But then seeing that it's essentially slave labor that are bringing these oranges to white Americans' tables so they can enjoy this, just like these little things of like reminding you of like, that this has been so normalized and glossed over because from the top down, they don't want you to see what is really going on here. And I just thought like, there's so many moments like that where it just like, it takes your breath away on the page.
Gosh, I didn't even notice that, like that correlation, but it's the kind of movie that I feel like if you watch multiple times, which I have not been able to do, if you watch multiple times, you're probably going to see different symbolisms. It's almost like eating that meal where like, a little bit of saffron, and then take another bite. Oh, is that garlic? You know,
Totally.
So much in there.
Because there's so much symbolism that's built like into the page, like with the alligator. Like there's this through line of the alligator, and then like then they bring that back. It's like a plant and payoff where at the end where you see that postcard of a black baby being used as bait for alligators. It's like, it's all these things that
and the way that they weave because on the page, you're not like, you're kind of guessing that the alligator's not probably there, but you're not totally sure because there's a lot of things you're not totally sure of while you're reading. But even the movie kind of delivers on it where you're like, I'm pretty certain the alligator's not there, but it feels like it could be there, which I loved because it's like there were these moments where like you see the adult men, at Nickel, where you were like, is that meant to legitimately mean that these are grown men there, or are we doing a little bit of like, there were moments where it's like you couldn't quite tell for sure. There was some mystery around it, but it was so potent.
Yeah. It's almost like you have a break with reality. Like if you're experiencing it through this point of view and you're trying to figure out, is this real? Because this can't be real. This can't be my life. But then you have to live inside of it. And that's why like this friendship that happens is so, I have so many thoughts about like these two boys who see things from a different perspective. And one is so naive and hopeful. And one has been hardened in so many ways. And the way that they kind of exchange worldviews in a certain way. It's coming of age. And I mean, almost every movie is coming of age, but this is, it's coming of age in such a fractured way because you don't get all the ingredients you need, but you do get ingredients. You get ingredients that like make you sick. And so you don't know, if your brain were to allow you to understand what's happening, you wouldn't survive and you wouldn't have hope. Like you wouldn't have any hope. And so it's almost like you're fighting yourself to figure out, am I here or not?
That's so spot on. And I feel like what you just said about those certain things like the alligator and like just different things, like almost like messing with your sense of reality, it is almost, that's perfectly put because that is what it is. It's almost like because we spend so much time in the POV, it is almost like we're questioning our own sanity and reality. That again, when you think about what stress does to a body and what stress does to a mind, it's like, it's almost the rational response to have these things where you're going, what's real, what's not. And like to get into the movie a little bit more, and we can totally go back to the page, but one of the things that I was so like, it was potent on the page, but like in the movie when they go to the White House and you have that anxiety because you know nothing good happens here. Nothing good happens here. And you have two of them having already been there before, I believe. And Elwood's the only one who's not. So you feel his anticipation. Like you feel that. They give you just enough of that sound, that awful fucking fan or whatever it is, that awful thing that's like meant to cover the noise but doesn't. Like the way they describe that is also beautiful in the script. Like it's very well like described. But the fact that you hear it happening to a different character, and then we see the anticipation for the next boy, and then Elwood's sitting here going like, what? And then we walk Elwood in, we see like how it's Spencer, right? Now I'm having
Spencer.
Yeah, Spencer is like all sweaty. So you're like, okay, so he's fully given this his all in the most vile, disgusting way. You see this room, you're in it just long enough to be absolutely horrified. And then you never lose audio, you hear the whole thing, but the decision to cut to really zoomed in images of real photos of boys was so horrific and profound at the same time. I was like, what a choice. Like, what a choice to take you right up to the moment where it's going to happen. You still have to hear it. You still have to hear Spencer say, if you make a noise, you're going to get more. But now your brain is even filling in even more. And while you're having to look at real photos zoomed in of real boys that experience this, I mean, I literally was like speechless, absolutely speechless.
I know that writers and directors get a ton of like most of the credit when it comes to this medium, but I don't think that this movie, I mean, the editing on this film to me feels like such a stellar way of storytelling, because I don't think it could have reached those heights unless there's like the patience of an editor being like, actually, I'm going to hold on this a little bit long. That takes so much restraint not to just like give the people what they want, you know, and to know when to put in archival. Archival just feels like another character in this movie.
It does.
Yes.
It does. And I feel
100%.
like in the script, it was great, but the movie dialed it in even better because I went back and looked for a second, and there is definitely a lot of the archival is pretty similar, but then some of the just shots of other things that are not in any of like our characters, but they're other, that was dialed in a little bit more in the film in a way that I think was really potent. And whereas there were a couple times on the page, it got a little lost because there was just so many, but the use of that was so, that is so brilliantly, oh my God, the restraint. I didn't even think about that. That is the perfect word for it.
Completely. Yeah, the editing is really stunning. One of my favorite things I noticed with the edit was that, so in the script, it happens in the beginning between when Elwood gets accused of like the whole car stolen thing with that whole mishap. And then it's like him leading up to like us finding out what's going to be the punishment for this. And you have this scene with Hattie in the kitchen, and she's opening cabinets saying, Elwood, Elwood, Elwood. And they say in there, it's almost as if she's searching for him in the cabinets. So then in the film, brilliant choice, which I'm guessing is probably the editor, they put that scene at the very end. And it's like after Elwood has Script Babies, if you haven't seen it, huge spoiler alert. If you don't want to hear what happens at the end, like skip ahead a few minutes. But when Elwood gets murdered by Harper as they're trying to get away, then after that is when we see this shot of Hattie calling his name and opening the cabinets. And I just thought that was so much more powerful to place it there in the narrative because it's so much more telling and almost shows like the fallout of that for Hattie too. It was so stunning.
I'm a big believer that a movie has at least 3 different movies in them, right? There's a movie that you write, there's a movie that you make, and then there's a movie that you edit. And I think you have to go into it with that. You have to go into it. Okay, what are the ingredients we have now? We have all this footage. We have these genius people. What are we making now? Because if you don't go into that, you may miss opportunities like what you're talking about moving things around and figuring out where they fit now. This is a new movie now. Let's rethink this now. And you have to have faith in the people you're working with. It's such a collaborative art form. And there are certain roles that, by the way, I do think Ramel Ross is a genius, but there are certain roles that are seen more genius than others. And I think that's shoot yourself in the foot.
Also, the music. Hello. Some of the music choices, I was
scoring,
like,
when they first arrive at Nickel Academy with that discordant kind of, it's almost mechanical. It's almost like a string. It's like droning
horrific.
on and on. It's so disorienting and puts you, because like you see, like he's kind of like, even the script, they say like when they first pull up, I had this in one of my Daddy Do's, but they show the difference between the white side of the school and the black side of the school, and how there's, again, almost this shred of hope that like, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Look how lush and great it is. And then like that music starts playing and you go forward and you see where he'll actually be in that, like the faces of the boys there and how like downtrodden they are and everything. It's just so good.
Okay, question for you guys. So when I read it, I thought nothing of it. And then when I watched it, I literally paused it. I was like, I have to bring this up. So when Elwood is like, I mean, it's not a hospital, but when after like he gets the horrific beating and then he's in like a ward of some sort, when Turner comes to see him and they're hearing the boy like screaming or like being weird, like making weird noises behind the curtain, and Elwood's telling him to go look, and he says, why don't you go look? Trade places with him like in a ghost stories, like him in a ghost story. And I was like, is that a foreshadow? Because why don't you go look, trade places with him like in a ghost story? When that is essentially what happens, in the sense that Elwood ends up being murdered and then Turner takes on his name. Like, I'm not going to say his identity because I don't, but like, again, like, I'm not saying that is what it was, but like, when I was sitting there, I was like, oh my God. It almost felt like trade places with him like in a ghost story. I wouldn't refer to this film as a ghost story, but there is that twist where I was like, oh my God, it felt like the most tiny little seed of like what happens later. Because in this, I don't know about you, Spade, because you saw it first, but when I read it, the shocking ending that Elwood is the one that's murdered was the shock. In the film, the shock was then that Turner took Elwood's name. That was the shock that I did not get in the script at all. I only got that watching the film. And I went back and looked, and the driver's license that they show at the very end, with all the different compilations of things that shows Turner's face, but with Elwood's name, that's not in the script at all. And it's so subtle, but so powerful in the film because it makes it makes it make more sense a little bit, where you're like, that's why like the women are calling him L, and it makes sense because they know him as L. But then at the very end, this woman that he ends up with says Turner. And we kind of need that for the story, but it's also conceivable that they've gotten past that point. He's gotten further with her in their relationship that he's been able to express, this is who I really am. And that she would say, are you really going to do it, Turner? Like that she would use his actual name. And the fact that makes like the most brilliant reveal, but it also is so relevant to the heartstrings of the film. That was what made the surprise like extra to me, where I was like, holy shit. But that was a movie thing. That was not a script thing for me. The script thing was just solely like, oh my God, Elwood's the one that's murdered. But the movie, I was like, oh my God. And then Turner took his name.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that because it works in the moment, because it's almost like a warning in the moment.
Yes.
And when gosh, I hate the word Easter eggs.
I know. We need a new word for Easter eggs.
I think maybe we just overuse that for Taylor Swift so much that it's hard.
Yeah.
But
I just like to say seeds. I'm like, oh, you're just planting little seeds.
Okay.
But yeah, I agree, Easter eggs. But again, I am not going to sit here and be like, that's what it was. But it just struck me because I was like, it trade places with him like in a ghost story. And I was like, oh my God, like that he literally takes his name. And again, I don't think that the reference is that he's supposed to be taking his identity, but it was like he's doing this in honor of his friend and all these different things. And it makes us, having followed who we thought was Elwood, make sense. Because we hear, for a second I was like, does no one say his name? But the first girl we see him dating, she does say L. So that is purposeful. Like we are meant to, that wasn't an assumption we just made. We are meant to, like, someone literally says L. But then also then looking back at the bar scene and you thinking that that's Elwood.
Right.
And so when he asks about the other guy, you're like, oh, he's talking about Turner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
That reveal on the page, like literally like hit me like a ton of bricks, because there's so many times where when I'm thinking of like concepts for a movie or just like plotting something out where it's like, oh, I want this to really hit someone like a splash of cold water on the face. And this is really the first time in a script that I can like think of right now that's been truly effective. The reveal that, holy shit, Turner's the one that's going to get away here. And then you hear the gunshots. We don't show what happens, but you know what happens. And then realizing that makes you backdate everything that you just read and say, oh my God, that wasn't Elwood that we're cutting to in the future. And just like, it's one of the most effective twists that I've seen. And it's really, really, really well done on the page. It's
rare. And I think whenever I'm a big fan of like escalating conflict, but this is almost the opposite. It's like escalating hope and then cutting it down. That's just so effective.
Escalating hope.
Yes. I love that.
Is exactly what it is.
Spade just dropped another nugget.
These writers, like they utilize your assumptions. Like I said, like earlier, they utilize you, like they place these breadcrumbs for you, knowing you're going to follow them, only to then just be like, nope. And then like that makes the messaging of the story so much more potent and powerful. And like they do that. They also, the messages and themes of the movie are woven into the action really well. Also like in subtle ways, like there's one on page 85 where they kind of get into the psychology of these racist white people in a very subtle way. It's when Elwood and Turner are out doing one of their public service things, and I think it's right after Turner finds out that Elwood's been documenting everything in the notebook, and they're walking away, and it says, the white people of Mariana are eyeing them as they pass to and fro on the sidewalk, trying to account for the two unescorted black boys in their state-issued uniforms, but dismissing the thought that it's beyond their control. Like that was stunning to me, because that's what it really comes down to, is control. Like you want to control what these boys can and can't do, and like that you feel like you have control over, like, you know, your life and everything. It's just
how on display that is in the fight scene where it was hard on the page, but watching him almost like accidentally win, like, and then he can't even celebrate his win. He can't even honor his own strength and win because he knows what that means for his fate, was so horrific. And it was absolutely on the page, but seeing it, the way you hear, and all the friends are so, they use the juxtaposition so stunning in this film, where it's like, for all intents and purposes, it's like, yeah, you should be celebrating. This is fucking great. You beat him, like, ba-da-da. But it's like he knows what it means, and he can't even enjoy it for himself. And you hear that panic in his voice. I didn't mean to. I thought it was, and it's like, it's so horrific. It's so horrific. And yet the juxtaposition is what makes it so powerful, that normally you would just be like, oh yeah, like winners and losers and da-da-da. Nope, because of what we set up beforehand, and control. The white man needing to control that you can't even win. And I'm going to make it sound like you winning would somehow be lesser. Like, it's so beyond, but illustrated so well. But God, that scene, oh my God, that scene. It got me on the page, but like watching it, I was just like, oh my God, my God.
Because they set up the stakes so clearly. It's literally life and death. And then you're cutting back to the future where you're seeing all these radar images of, unmarked graves and stuff. And you know just how many, like, because this is just the story of two of these boys that have gone here. This is in the real life school this is based on was in operation for 111 years. I was reading about the history of it last night, and there were 3 times as many dead black boys than the white ones. 3 times as many that they found. And it's just like, and the fact that this was in operation until 2011.
Yeah.
Like, it's this reminder that like you can't even really scratch the surface of the damage that has been done. But
Right.
like you shouldn't look away from this. Like, that's why I feel like this, it's just, everyone should see this movie. It's so powerful.
I feel like what's so suffocating about this film, and like, if you've seen the 13th that Ava DuVernay did, it's a similar narrative about like the justice system and slave labor. I think what's so suffocating about this one is like coming down from the policy 50-foot view and just coming into the experience of what it feels like to be there. And then the panic of knowing that we are replicating that right now feels like it's almost like the grandmother's perspective, where you're an adult in this world, right? You're a grown up. You have certain privileges as a grown up, which is so interesting to watch her interact with this boy who's like supposed to be a bully character, but like turns into a child whenever he's around, like a motherly character, and how he protects her.
Mm.
How he protects her in that moment and doesn't give her the information that, because she wouldn't be able to do anything anyway. I think watching us go back into a place where we're trying to criminalize umpteen things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how we know what kind of labor is being set aside for prisoners of all types. It feels like I'm on the outside being like, okay, so what power do I have to like stop this from happening? And as citizens, as voters, I'm a grown up in this situation.
Yeah.
But I don't have like whatever power to like stop this from happening.
Go ahead,
There's
Colin.
a portion of power in not letting people forget what we've come from and that these things really happened. And also further than that, that they never really stopped.
Right.
The brutality is still there, never went away. It was just redesigned, repackaged. And it's making like platforming movies like this and stories like this and putting it in the face of these people. So it's like these racists can't just look away from it. Because that's what they want to do. La, 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 this isn't happening. It's like, no, babe, this is. And the fact that you want to shield your eyes from it means that you're fucking ashamed. And
Well,
you need
and
to
how-
look and see what's happened.
And how confronting to be in the POV, that you don't get to just be the audience watching people. You are in it. And
Yes.
and I think that when you immediately hear like on paper, like this movie is going to mainly be POV, you don't immediately get excited about that, just because we're not used to POV equaling intimacy and like vulnerability. I'm not, at least, that this, what is confronting and then ultimately like so incredible about this film is like it really does give you an opportunity to like be in something in a way that you can't look away from, and you can't just go, oh, this is narrative. Even though it's such an artistic film, you still, even with all these different worlds we have coming in, you still cannot ever get away from being in it. And not even just one person. We're in 2 different boys' POVs who see the world slightly differently, but are experiencing the same things, which how profound is that as well? That they do have slightly, that the world has treated them the same, but they see it differently. But then Spade, like you said, through each other, they start to kind of like take on each other's. Like we see Elwood start to see things a little bit more the way Turner does. And Turner, obviously, being willing to take the notebook and do what he does means that he ultimately believes, whether if it's just because he loves Elwood or it's because Elwood's perspective has seeped in enough that he's willing to do it. Either way, these two boys have had a profound impression on each other, which is just like this gorgeousness in the midst of this like absolute hideous world around them.
Well, I'm curious what you guys think about this as like an art piece, because it's such a unique and I think beautifully piece of art. Like thematically, it's all of these things, but then it's just like, I love watching filmmakers take risk. And
Me
this is
too.
a big swing.
It is bold.
And then he knocks out the park, which is like,
Knocks
I
it.
made a few big swings and they were duds. It's exciting because I mean, even this is a funder, my background as a funder, our questions is like, how is this pushing the boundary of the form? How is this, which is like why I'm so disappointed that it's not a bigger film and more people haven't seen it. Cause it's like, we should be celebrating what we're saying the feature can do now, you know, what risk people are taking and stuff like that. And is there, when you were going over the stats for the film and just kind of, you know, how much is made and stuff like that, like, is there room for artistic films to be commercially viable? Or, I mean,
I know. But again, it's so crazy because you have like Plan B behind it, which is like no slouch of a production company. You know what I'm saying? Like, so they got the money behind it, but then it was like I don't know if it's just me being completely naive, but it feels like a movie that like, if I would love to believe if more people were aware of it, they would see it. But I don't know, but it is one of those things where like now having read it and seen it, I'm so fucking grateful that we're doing this film, because to me, it's like, it's our responsibility to carry this into as many people as possible, because to me, if films like this aren't being made, then what is the fucking point? And it's like it's not an FU to like superhero, any of that shit. There's room for all of it, but I am so exhausted by this idea that we have to keep replicating the same formula, the same thing, and pretending that is going to do anything for people, when the whole point of storytelling is to move matter inside of yourself, to understand things you didn't before in yourself, about other people, all of it, that we have to go about it different ways. Sometimes it's a film that's on the nose and there's almost zero artistic interpretation and it's just right there. And then you have movies like this that are both on the ground, real, in your face, and also stunningly ambitious and artistic. And we have to have that. Like, I feel like I will go to the movie theater every day if it means that we can get more of these things, because this is the kind of movie that moves matter in people. And that is the point.
Yeah. I mean, you've heard the old adage that it's harder to make your second film than your first, right? So then, because we have our ideas of like, who are the big filmmakers in the world? And we've seen all of their films. And I'm like, how is Ramel not on these lists? Did y'all see what he did?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I want to see more from this team. Jocelyn Barnes also comes from the documentary world. She's been producing docs for like as long as I can remember. And I'm like, wait, we're doing fiction now? Wait, I have to recalibrate. And then sometimes that leap is just a leap and then you fall. But then sometimes it's like this. And I want to see more. I want to see funders take these kinds of risks, you know?
Yeah. I mean, they should. I mean, it's so, I hate how everything comes down to if a film's like traditionally marketable or like how much it'll make and everything. It's like, I get that the whole ecosystem of filmmaking and stuff like has to have money to like continue, but at what cost are we continuing to pump millions and millions of dollars into this Marvel schlock? Like, when you could be making 4 or 5 of films like this for the budget of one of those. And like the disservice that it's doing to people at large too, because like it's making you have to it's kind of putting people in a position where they're not expecting more from movies. And so when a film like this comes along that breaks the rules, that's bold, that's artistic, they kind of see it as less important than it actually is. Where it's like, the fact that any movie gets made ever is insane. The fact that a good movie gets made is even more rare. The fact that a great movie like this can get through and then be nominated for Oscars, everything that it took to bring any film to an audience, it's a miracle any of it happens. But then to put all that work in, to have all the care that is put into this movie, to then go and not market the fuck out of it and like push it. To me, this is a total assumption. It feels like, again, total assumption, script babies. I don't know this for sure. It feels like some higher ups were scared as fuck about what these fucking white people would say. Like, because this is a look at real history. And it's not supposed to be pretty. And you're supposed to feel for it, you know?
Well,
so it doesn't happen again.
And can we talk about how it was Harper that was the character that ultimately kills Elwood? I felt like it felt like the strongest choice and yet the most heartbreaking one, because they give you these teeny tiny little moments that make you think like, oh, maybe Harper's not completely entirely fucked. Maybe he's only like 90% fucked. And then nope. Abso-fucking-lutely not. He did not need to do that, and he did that. And that is one of the most chilling things about the film to me, was not just that Elwood is the one that you're thinking it's going to go a different way, but then that it was at the hands of Harper, who was trying to, at different times in the film, act like he was going to be Mr. Cool and like, you know, a little bit, you know what I mean? And again, I didn't like, they certainly didn't make him seem like a good guy, but I'm saying like in comparison to the other characters, we would not assume. I thought it was going to be like Spencer out there with the gun, and like that would have felt totally on par with that character. But it being Harper and the look in his eyes, I was like, we're not shying away here at all. We are looking you right in the face and saying, yep, it's that guy that does it. Yeah. It's that guy.
I feel like one of the most powerful things that my mother used to say all the way, like growing up all the time, whenever we would bring up something terrible, like, oh, look who murdered who, or look who assaulted who, or this such and such, you know, embezzled all of these funds. And my mother is very keen on helping us understand that it could be us. Like, oh, this guy took advantage of this young girl. Right. So if you are not someone who consistently checks in with yourself, if you're not someone who consistently holds yourself accountable to certain ethics, that could be you, not the person being abused, the perpetrator. It could be any of us. And that's why we have to have a constant diet of like, who do I want to be in this world? And how do I build myself up to be that person? And I think the death of that hope in that character is such a reflection of, oh my gosh, if I'm not careful, I become that guy. Which is why, like, for so long being on the other side, the funder side, the exec side, I remember like being in conference rooms with terrible lighting and always having a conversation about the field. Like, is this movie good for the field? Does this shift the conversation? Does this move the form forward? Like, all of these ideas of like, what's good for the field, right? And I feel like we're losing sight of what's good for the field. It's good. It's healthy for the field when we make blockbusters. It's also healthy for the field when we do this kind of thing. We can't like starve that out. It's not good for all of us. Like I'm going to tell you one more thing and then I'm going to stop yapping.
Never stop yapping.
Truly never stop yapping.
So this summer I taught a film lab for teen girls. And I had them do this exercise that we did my very first semester in film school, which was the professor asked us to make a list of all the things we learned from watching movies. And if you've been on my TikTok, you've probably heard me describe this already because it's so important to me. I went home and made a list of all the things that and it was a long list. I thought it was going to be short, but I ended up kept like writing and writing and writing and writing. And I realized, okay, I know the perfect moment to lean in for a kiss by watching a movie. I learned that men are inherently flawed and it's women's job to forgive them. I learned that by watching, but I didn't know that I learned that, but I did learn that because of all these huge gestures. It's like all the movies, boy meets girl, boy is somehow a screwed up individual. And all he has to do is like put a boombox on his head or like do something large. And it's like, all is forgiven. And that's my role in the world. And there are all of these things that I learned about how to be by watching movies. So if we have that power as filmmakers and screenwriters, and we're teaching people how to be, we can't neglect what we know. I don't know if that's like too preachy, but
no, you know what I just thought of, and I've never fully linked this, but what you just said made me go, again, I'm not even trying to like shit on Marvel and them like that. Like I honestly kind of feel indifferent about all that, other than Colin and I talk about this all the time. Like my own writing genre typically is far more in like the slice of life and like exploring relationship dynamics. Like that's the shit that lights me up. That's my favorite stuff to watch. Granted, I'll watch anything, but that's the stuff I typically write. And one of the things I feel most honestly obsessed with is making it impossible to completely villainize anyone. I like getting into exactly what you said, your mom said, where it's like, as soon as you want to just be like, oh, fuck that guy, all of a sudden there's a behavioral shift in the other person that makes me go like, well, I didn't love that she did that. Like that we all have two wolves in us, and it's who we feed and how often we feed them. And it's never, you can never assume you're ever one thing forever. And I think the downside and the concerning thing about how much we're pushing into movies that make villains very black and white, where it's like, these are the good guys, these are the villains. You look at our culture and the divide feels so large right now. And you can't help but think that so much of what we are taking in as a collective are movies that are spoon feeding you good guy, bad guy, good guy, bad guy, when it's like, that's concerning. That's concerning. Yeah. When we have to be able to look at what's all of it. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like there is objectively bad and objectively good. I'm not saying otherwise, but I'm saying, like you're saying, our responsibility as filmmakers, as screenwriters, as storytellers is like, we need to pivot into a place where we are showing the complexity of people, because we need to get back to that, because you know what I mean?
Yeah,
does that make sense?
I know exactly what you mean. And there was this screenwriter, I don't remember his name, who got up, I think it was like maybe at the, I don't know if it was like a guild meeting or something, but he was talking about like, let's make, stop making bad guys so sexy. Because I think we did go through a long period of time where we made the bad guy cool and so sexy and flawed villain and like all of this stuff. And it's like, now we're in a place where we have brought to fruition where we're celebrating like bad behavior. We're celebrating crassness as being real. We're celebrating assault as being like, this is the way things are. And at least he's being transparent about it. And it gives us an excuse, a reason to excuse all of these things that are making us really sick as a society.
That's what's so complex about this, though, is you absolutely nailed it. Is like, again, I'm sitting here with myself going like, we can never escape that there is a divide for very real reasons. There are people who see the world in toxic, horrific, hateful ways that get other people murdered. That's fucking real. And then there's people who see the world from a completely different perspective. But from looking at it through the scope of the stories we're telling, what are we influencing upon people, in the sense that it's like, before we get to the category of all good, all bad, what are we doing to feed that middle ground and try to get away from the extremes of it and try to have a deeper understanding? But oh my God, you're absolutely right. Think about how many women or not even women, like anyone who's attracted to men, whatever, how often the bad guy is innately, even, by the way, not in a film, like you said, in your dating life, you're like, this dude's kind of a piece of shit, but he's so hot and the way he did it. And it's like, that has to come from influence of what we've been ingesting unconsciously.
Yes. The guy on the motorcycle is like the cool one, and the sensitive guy is a loser. And then you become an adult and you're like, oh my gosh, that whole thing was a lie. Who taught me that? Who taught me that? And the truth is like the nuance needs to be on the bad guy side as well, because if we're not showing how ugly and lonely it is to be a terrible person, we're not telling the full truth. Like the concept of misogyny is it wrecks men's lives, because if you can't see women as equal, who are you commiserating? Like, how are you intimate with someone that that's lonely. And that's why you're mad.
Yeah.
Well, whenever I observe those things, I always go, happy people don't do that. Like, you know what I mean? Happy people don't do that. Happy people aren't out in the world hating other people and wanting to destroy their lives when it doesn't affect them anyway. Happy people don't do that. So not that you need to sit and write a poem about that dude, but that being said, like you said, understanding the layers of like unhappy people, miserable people, lonely people are what contributes to these scary, toxic behaviors. And like, it's, I think we have to find a way to try to understand that more without making it be like an apologist for that. It's not that, but it's like, I'm only better as a person understanding how things get to be a certain way. And I've talked to Colin about this before, like as a mom, becoming a mother, one of the things I felt so intense in postpartum was like, it is not natural to not be a good mom or parent. It is literally goes against every instinct that you have, that when I hear of these stories that I've heard from people, my thought now is how far back does the lack of care go for that person? Because it is, and again, that's not me ever saying the behavior is okay or that what they did is okay, not at all. But it's interesting now, having lived the experience of a mother and the intensity and the expectation and all of these things, and not just like from the world, there's this expectation of you are meant to be, your whole life is meant to be given to this child in an instant, but then at the same time, you're meant to also have like a thriving life. But it's so complex and interesting. But I always put it through the scope of it is not natural to not want to be great at this. And if you have given up trying to be great at this, the lack of care must be a lineage so long and wide and intense, because that is not natural. And I do think there is something other than the fact that it's heartbreaking from the perspective of storytelling. I do think that's something to investigate a little bit, to go like, what creates bad parents? Because it's not natural.
The investigation piece is, I think, probably what makes you such a good writer. Because without that curiosity, you're not interested in the human experience. You're interested in making a point. Right? But your whole view of like, how is this worldview created? What are the ingredients of this thing? That's character development, and you're just doing it naturally.
And it exists outside. I think it takes people different things to get there. Like the tools are really all just to get you to the same place, right? Like what tool a person uses to get there is irrelevant as long as it works for them. But it is ultimately, you're just coming back to the practice of observing people and trying to understand why they are the way that they are, or why love manifests the way it does or doesn't. And like, that curiosity, I think, is also hopeful. And I think right now we're seeing an uptick of people feeling the opposite of hopeful around love and around relationships. And there's something really interesting about that, because I think we've been fed the fantasy, and nothing lives up to the fantasy long term. But that being said, what's underneath the fantasy, what real long-term love looks like, is infinitely more profound and beautiful than these love bomby movies. But we don't quite yet know as a culture how to embrace all of it. It's like, I think a lot of times people are going through so much that they just want that easy shot in the arm, where it's like, that's why you have a lot of these certain types of books popping off right now, where it's like people just want that instant like pleasure, instant sexy, instant whatever. Whereas like the slower ride or like the more quiet ride almost feels like that's not work I want to do right now, you know,
Oh
but
my
it's like,
gosh.
but it's our responsibility to be like, no, that's work we have to keep doing.
Did you just solve all the world's problems?
That's kind, not even a little, but I'll take it.
Because that's it, right? The lack of community we have in terms of like how culturally we don't live together and like with, you know, community with our families. The instant gratification, that could be social media, that could be a bunch of stuff that adds, like, there's all of these reasons why humans aren't humaning.
Mm-hmm.
And movies like this force you to human for as long as it's on. And that is confronting for a lot of people in a way that I think some people think they don't have the wherewithal or like the I don't know, the ability right now. But it's like, again, we have to. We absolutely have to. And to bring it back to the movie for 1 second, I had to say this. One of the brilliant parts of this film that struck me so much was the bar scene that Chicky Pete's performance was arguably one of the most important of the film because we don't really get FaceTime of adult Turner / Elwood, like barely, like very quick, you know, towards the end, him, but it's always the back of his head. That watching Chicky Pete, knowing what we know he went through, and seeing the way he's carrying it while trying to be optimistic and hopeful, even with his own friend who went through, you know, the same experience, and the way we can tell he's navigating the world was so brilliantly done that I was like, it felt like something that could be really easy to be like, oh yeah, that was a great scene. But from a storytelling perspective, I'm like, that scene was huge and so essential because it forced you to not just be in it, because now we're kind of a little outside of it. We're on top of it, Elwood's head or Turner's head, but we're having to watch someone else who went through this straight, like we're having to watch them. We're not in their POV. We're having to look at their face, their body language, the discomfort, the issues with drinking, all these things. It was like, that was almost a greater representation of what this place did to someone than we ever got to fully see an adult Turner, because we never really get to spend much time with him.
Right.
In his face. Like, all right, we do, but behind him. You know what I mean? Like we don't get to see that. We only feel his heaviness. We don't get to see it. Whereas Chicky Pete as an adult, like you see it.
Yeah, you see the legacy of destruction that this place put upon these innocent boys. It's horrible. And then just to circle back to Harper for a second, because what we were just talking about, like, really got me thinking of like, because all the time, not all the time, but often I kind of think about the duality between like good people, bad people. And it's so easy to put people into boxes, but like, I truly don't think anyone wakes up in a day and thinks, I'm going to wake up today and be the bad guy. I'm going to be the awful person. I'm going to be the villain. Maybe some people do, who knows? But like this idea that like because like the reveal that it's Harper that shoots him. And then like, there is that split second look on his face when he's looking through the scope, and you almost see like a little bit of like fun in his face in a really disturbing way. And then when I think about the different times with him, like, so Harper's younger than the other white men that we see in it. And you kind of understand that he's been brought up in this world, in this system, to view Black people as lesser than him. And he's been socialized to think that it's okay to be abusive to them and everything. And you see that the very first, and it's okay to, not only is it okay, it's imperative to put them in their place. And there's this moment where I don't know if it's when we first meet Harper or not, but it's early on. He's driving in the car with Turner. Turner's blowing a bubble. Very simple thing, just one of those very micro acts of joy that you have, blowing a bubble, having fun. And it's Harper that reaches over and pops the bubble and then makes a popping sound. And you see then that there's almost this little bit of joy that Harper gets by being like, I'm the one in control here. I can even decide like what you're going to do with your bubble gum. And then later on, you see when Turner is walking away and, you know, he's upset with Elwood because he discovered the journal, and he's walking away at night, and he's like, come back here, where are the keys or whatever. And you see the next little level of it where he almost calls Turner the N-word and then stops himself and like continues. So you see almost like this dichotomy of like this person that he's becoming and growing into. And then ultimately that's all brought to fruition when he shoots this kid. And like, you don't know for sure if this is the first person he's killed, but you kind of get that vibe that this is him fully entering that thing. And like, it's like this idea of this, like the mantle is being placed onto the younger generation now. And it's like a form of, not to soften what they're doing at all, but like a form of like almost like a generational curse being placed on these younger generations of people who've been taught that it's okay to hate and that you have to and that you should. Otherwise, white people aren't going to be in control anymore. And it's like, they never fucking were, babe. Like, get over it. But yeah, it's just really interesting to see, because that's not really overt at all. And I'm all just kind of building this out in myself, but like, it's really interesting to see the levels of care that they put to the story with that.
Well, it's making, when you said that, it's making me go, what was it about Harper that made me feel like he was a piece of shit, but juxtaposed to the other men, there was something about him that you felt maybe a little hopeful about? Because you're right, he did do,
because he has more interpersonal communication with them.
I guess,
like he takes them out and like he's not benign, but he's not overtly evil like a Spencer is, you know? Mm-hmm. And like, you see that when he's like taking them out, like there's almost like, he seems like he's a little bit less threatening, but then, you know, he's not, because he's having, you know, he's going to fulfill this legacy that has been placed upon him that he's also choosing to fulfill. Because, well, you know, he didn't grow up in a vacuum. Like he could have very easily chosen not to be this fucking awful racist, but here he is.
Well, and he has the line where he says, "You're lucky because I just got drafted." Like, right. Which is telling that he thinks that anyone.
You're lucky that you're here because you don't have to go to war, because the worst thing that this fucking little white boy who is you know, growing up with everything around him being placed, like, you know, made for him and everything, the world that is made for this cis white man. The worst thing he can imagine is having his freedom taken away so he can go fight for the country that only supports him.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, how lucky you are. Like, are you like, ooh, God, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I forgot about that line. There's all of these themes, and there's this weird cognitive, I don't know if it's a dissonance or something that's happening where all of these things are like wrapped up in this like really beautiful package. Because I also feel as though as much as the world needs like thematically what's happening in this movie, the world also needs to like feast its eyes on a beautiful thing. Like sometimes art is just like a beautiful thing. And this film has so much more going on. And I really struggled with this for a long time because I love beautiful things. And I think I had to ask myself at some point, is there something wrong with that? Mm. And then I'm coming around to the conclusion now that beautiful things, I heard this on an episode of Frasier. Beautiful things, beautiful things really do elevate us as human beings. Like whether it's a sunset or you go to the Grand Canyon, and just the vastness of it is just, when you feast your eyes on that. And I really mean, like, I don't know the science or the math behind it, but it does something to us. I don't know if either one of you have words for it, but it elevates us somehow. And I think we need both. I think humans need to see what humanity looks like. And I think we need to see a beautiful thing. I don't have anything necessarily against all of the like fast moving CGI buildings that were made on a computer thing. But I think we need to also watch something that feels like awe. I don't know. Does this make any sense?
I think I'm kind of understanding, because like what's coming through to me when you say that is that like, because when you are put into the role of like observing something beautiful now, it kind of subverts your ego in a way because it takes you out of it and makes what you're viewing the subject, and it kind of elevates your consciousness in a way because you're appreciating what you're viewing, and that allows when that's placed into the context of a movie like this where you're having very deep messaging and stuff, but then shown with beautiful cinematography, very interesting artistic takes on things, it allows the messaging to kind of come in at a deeper level than if you're just showing horrible images of things that have happened. Because even then, like, you never see Elwood get beaten. You don't see him get murdered. You know it happens and it's awful and it's still disgusting and gut wrenching, but it's not like, I feel like in a way almost to show the images of the brutality instead of seeing the aftermath of it kind of makes the brutality the focus instead of the impact of what's happening and how that's affecting the, people around them at large and like what this legacy now is of what this person's gone through. So it forces you to take more of a intellectual approach to it and have to reckon with that instead of just having, again, this is not the correct verbiage, but like having like the easy route of just being shown a bad image. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's kind of what just came through to me, but I don't know if that was in line with what you were saying or not.
It is, because okay, so when you're a kid and SpaghettiOs and chicken nuggets are the most delicious things you'll ever eat, right?
Yeah.
And then as you mature, your tastes mature. So as we consume art, our taste for what is at the top matures, right? Like our ability to watch a beautiful thing and have an appetite for it, our ability to see a story that is subtle and complex and want more of that. Tastes so good. Give me some more. I mean, then we rise together in terms of like, what our taste is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gorgeously
I love that.
put. Well, we could literally talk to you for 100 years. This is like literally the best. Do you have any daddy do's for us, Spade?
Yes. Okay. So this is just to make sure that I'm doing it right. This is just general storytelling advice, right?
Yeah, I think we usually do it ones that we felt like we were reminded of from whatever we just read. But honestly, girl, you're our guest. Do whatever you want.
Okay. I think I have 3.
Perfect.
Okay, so 1 would be the most important ingredient in your writing practice is to be brave emotionally. You can't really get around that. And I know it's hard, but the vulnerability that you show on the page is what makes you a great writer, and it's what makes people like me recognize a great writer. So do whatever it takes to get there. Don't drink yourself into it.
Did you say don't drink yourself into it?
Right. Sometimes you're like, all right, I got to talk about my trauma. So maybe a shot or 2, right? But don't become an alcoholic to write the best thing you've ever written. I think the second thing is there is, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, this is just Spade's opinion, and I'm pretty sure there's plenty of instances that this does not apply. In my opinion, I don't think that there is a successful way to have a sustainable career as a screenwriter when you don't understand the business of buying and selling intellectual property and who is buying and why are they buying and what is their mandate and who is selling and how you get, like, all of that is really important to figure out. You can still write whatever you want, but it's important to have the correct expectations for your work. And it's important to know how to navigate your career when you understand the business side of the thing that you're a part of. And then I would say the third thing, I think you two are a perfect example of this. I do not believe in trying to do this alone. And this is specifically for people who like live outside of LA, New York, Atlanta, Chicago, Miami, wherever people feel like the hot spots are. You need more than just like a writing partner, and you do need some kind of accountability buffer mirror thing. But you need, and I deeply, deeply believe in this, especially now, someone to commensurate with, because this is a marathon, not a sprint, and someone to vent to who like understands how difficult it is, someone to be able to be petty about an executive that made you mad, who's not going to tell everybody and then ruin your chances or reputation or whatever. Somebody's going to hold that as a ball. And then when you both see them, you're like, we don't like that bitch. Like, you need real friends, not just contacts, but like real friends. And if you find those real friends, don't get so busy that you don't check on them or invest in that friendship. Please do invest in your relationships. I think they can be sometimes a matter of you keep going and not keep going.
Absolutely stunning. And that last one is so real. And Colin and I talk about this all the time with each other. Like, we are each other's readers too. Like, first, like as soon as we have a draft that's like ready to be seen, but not ready to be seen. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and what's so like stunning about it is that because we write separate, but we also write together, there is such an understanding of like, he knows I think he's brilliant, and like he's so kind and understanding about like my ability that there's no insecurity. When I send him a script, I know any criticism will be constructive and will make the story better, and I don't have to sit here going like, does this mean he thinks that I don't know how to write a script? It's like that is such a waste of energy. You have to work with people, or work with, meaning friends or you, or like consultants, where it's like you have to work with people that there's an understanding where it's like, no, I got you. Like, I got you, because your ideas and your scripts are not safe with everyone. You know what I mean? Right. And you have to use discernment to decide who it is safe with and nurture those relationships 100%. Colin and I both are like honestly blown away by how much our ability separately and together has expanded because of our relationship, because we're like, we're in each other's corners and we get it. Like, our partners are supportive and loving, but they're not writers. So it's like there's getting to have that with each other has been so profound for us, and it births this, which like we get to have conversations like this with you, and it's like the coolest thing ever. So community is everything.
I love that for you guys.
Well, next time you're in LA, let's get dinner and let's all be friends in real life.
Colin, I got her number, so I can text her and be annoying and be like, are you in LA? Are you in LA? We're going to dinner.
I feel a group chat coming on.
Oh, Spade, whether you like it or not, girl.
We're just going to be sitting at dinner, like talking about story for 3 hours.
You know what we should do? Oh my God, no, you know what we should do? I'm pre-planning our date. We should go see a movie together and then have dinner and drinks and like feast, like just nom 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 nom.
Do not tempt me with a good time.
Well, let us know next time you're in LA.
I
hope it's very soon.
Wait, I'm so giddy about the idea.
Me too. Okay, yeah, I'm definitely gonna hit you up. Don't act like you didn't see my text when I text you. Hi guys, I'm at LAX. Hi guys.
I'll say pulling right up.
We'll be like, reservations are made, Spade. Done. Get up here.
Done. We're at the AMC. Come meet us.
Carly, do you want to do daddy do's or?
Yeah, I'm going to keep mine super brief. Mine were, I have 3 for that pertain to this one. Daddy do quiet reveals. The shock that it's Turner who survives and not Elwood hits hard. And in the film, the reveal that adult Turner goes by Elwood is shown through very quick shots of his driver's license. I love that this was done in such a quiet way. It actually made it a lot more impactful than if it had been spelled out for the viewer. It's a type of choice that sticks with you and you think about later. That was one of the things that stuck with me, was I was like, I thought about it more later because it was such a quick driver's license, two different, him young, again, genius, like him when he first got the license, and then him older, which is the back of the head that we were accustomed to. It was so subtle that I'm sure plenty of people who saw this movie maybe didn't even fully get it. But it's what made me think about it even more later. And I am such a sucker for anything that makes me think about a movie more later. And that was one of the key things where I was like, God, that reveal was good. Like, it was earned, it was heartfelt, and it was believable. And that combination is the most delicious cocktail there is. My second daddy do is trust your audience. Trust that not everything needs to be spelled out. Hit the moments you feel strongest about and leave room for emotions that we will fill in. The choice and I just essentially went into like the White House, how we are brought up to that moment, but then the restraint of not showing but hearing it, like that you're trusting your audience is going to get what they need from that, and you 100% do. Like, you just do. This movie takes you right to where it needs to, and then it allows you to just feel. And I feel without a lot of dialogue, and again, as a person who's obsessed with dialogue, that's such a testament to how well they did it, because you didn't need dialogue for so much of it because of how smart they handled all of it. And my last one is do experiment. My God, this movie is a masterclass and the greatest example I can think of in recent history why experimenting with how you tell a story is so important and so crucial and so beneficial. This is a story that was worth telling no matter what. But the freedom I felt watching a filmmaker decide to tell this story this way made me feel more free in my writing, in my world, in my experience. That, oh my God, I hope you take so much from this movie, but as a writer, I hope you take further permission to tell the story you want to tell through the lens you want to tell it through with confidence. Those are my daddy do's.
Love it.
Because also that experimentation led to multiple Academy Award nominations.
Hello.
Okay, my daddy do's, I have 3.
We're all
so
threes.
Daddy do number 1. Daddy do lean into specificity. The script is absolutely visceral on so many levels due to the extremely specific prose on the page. Like on page 37 where it reads, Elwood POV, turning from the pillowcase that smells like vinegar up to the ceiling of the dormitory room where watermarks seem to contract and expand like a colony of jellyfish. Paint rinds hang like tendrils from the ceiling. Our brains crave vivid descriptions because it allows us to put ourselves in the scene, and this film is an excellent example of how to do it beautifully. Daddy do number 2. Daddy do juxtapose situations, character dynamics, and visuals to hone messaging, themes, and increase overall impact. One example of this is on pages 28 through 29. When Elwood first arrives at Nickel Academy, the writers show the levels of disparity between the two campuses to great effect. The action reads, this is for the white side of the campus, Elwood POV from the back seat of the car as it pulls up to Nickel Academy school grounds. Not what Elwood imagined. The place is lush green and dotted with buildings of red brick. It's a perversion of the college he was intended for. The police car drives up the road to the main administration building with an American flag and a statue, passing a field where some white boys are scrimmaging and yelping, versus this is how the black campus is described. The officer gets back in the car and drives Elwood further up the hill to the other side of the school. Same basic look, but fewer athletic facilities, and there are more buildings purposed for labor. A cement block works, a smokehouse, a laundry, and a small lone sugar cube of a building known as the White House, with rust stains like vines falling across its white walls. It's the only building with a patch of uncut grass encircling it. They pull up into a Nickel parking lot. And then Daddy do number 3. Daddy do shatter the reader's expectations. This story sets up Elwood's character in such a way that you really root for him and hope for a happy ending. By cutting back and forth from past to future, you truly believe he's going to survive. But when those expectations and assumptions are crushed, it hits you like a train. For a twist to be effective, you can't see it coming, and the way this story achieves that is masterful.
Gorgeous.
Oh, I love
Spade,
it.
do you have any don'ts for us? And they can just be general one. It doesn't have to be from the script, but like, do you have any like hardcore daddy don't? Just don't.
Yes. Okay. So I would say I have 2 major daddy don'ts. I would say don't let your fear or anxiety write your script. So don't let your fear, you sit at the page and you go, and that keeps you from doing the real thing or writing the real thing, or your fear of what people will think, right? So with a script like this one, it could be like, well, who's going to make this or whatever. And then I would say the next one is don't run from collaboration. So Ramel Ross and why am I forgetting? Jocelyn Barnes, come from the nonfiction world, and you usually see these roles like a writer, director, kind of being one person, but they're both very different people. One is a man, one is a woman, one is white, one is black, and they came together and did this wonderful thing. And sometimes you can stretch, I feel like, but there's a limit to your stretch creatively. And it's not because you're not smart. It's not because you're not a genius. It's because what my dad says, I'm not super smart. I've just been living long enough to see the patterns. Whenever you work with someone who has some age on them or a different experience, what they bring is what it's been like to be alive for them. And a lot of times we want to absorb all of the glory associated with what we make, but I think that's the wrong way to go about creating art. And so being able to share that glory with other people because of what they can bring is always a daddy do. So then the daddy don't would be to not avoid that.
Gorgeous. Yes. Stunning. Love. So good. Mine is really, it's like barely one. It was really more formatting with this script where it was just finding the balance between, on one hand, I loved how specific it was, but I think there were times that specificity and the need to indulge that specificity actually made it harder to picture at times, which is kind of weird to say, but that there were just like the boxing scene is a great example. I almost couldn't visualize it despite the fact that there was a page of describing what was going on. I just think finding the balance, but Spade, like you said, because he was directing this and writing this, it kind of makes sense why it was there. I think he was almost telling himself and reminding himself what it was going to be. But as a writer, or excuse me, as a reader observing it, it was hard to navigate. And I think the only times that I felt disconnected from the script were when it would just go into a space where it was like over-explained and it almost left me more confused. But then that was completely resolved in the film. So that's my only daddy don't. Colleen?
I have two daddy don'ts. Also like mostly formatting kind of things. Daddy don't. Number one, daddy don't skimp on character descriptions when introducing a large cast. I've said this daddy don't before, but I found myself getting lost on the page often because I wasn't able to remember certain characters because I didn't have some sort of physical attribute to place them in my mind. And while it didn't diminish the impact of the film, it did provide just a little bit more friction when imagining the story in my head. Daddy don't number two, daddy don't leave paragraphs of action unformatted. While the action is undeniably beautiful and expertly written, there's very little room for the eye to rest on the page because most of the action is shown in big blocks of paragraphs. Leaving room for open space on the page helps the reading experience feel less dense, thus allowing you to enter and follow the story more easily.
Gorgeous.
Is all she wrote.
Spade, I thank you doesn't even really do it justice.
Like the gift that we'll keep on giving.
Please come back. Like,
you read my mind. I literally was gonna say, wait, we gotta do another episode together.
Like, please, this is our formal invitation. Like, please come back.
Friend of the pod, Spade.
Friend of the pod.
This is so much fun.
You are
great.
You are a remarkable human being, and this was truly like the most stunning, interesting, like fulfilling conversation. And I feel like we're just like scratching, like there's so much that we can all get into. So thank you so much. And thank you for bringing Nickel Boys to us. Like this was just like incredible.
Thank you guys for having me. And thank you guys for letting me nerd out about story. And I hope to come back. I'm going to come back.
You'll be
Yes.
back.
And Spade, let the listeners know,
Yes.
how can they find you? How can they come to you for consulting? Give us your socials and everything.
Where
Let
can
them
they
know.
get your
Because you
workbook?
better follow her, because her tips are
You
amazing,
better.
by the way.
Oh, thanks, guys. So I'm on all the platforms at Atlanta Film Project, and my website is at atlantafilmproject.com. So if you have a screenplay or something you're working on, then you can book time on my calendar for me to read your script and consult with you on that. I also have fellowships where if you want to work over a period of time on a script that you're working on, or if you want to just work toward building a plan to elevate your career, you can also get on my calendar to do that. And then Script from Scratch, my screenwriting workbook, is available on TikTok Shop and on Amazon and on my website. So if you just look for Script from Scratch, you should be able to find it in any of those places. And it's literally, I have an idea and you just build the story from scratch with all the development inside. So you don't have to do it a million times.
I can't wait to read it. When Jeff Bezos decides that I'm worthy of receiving it,
yes.
I will be texting you about it because I'm so excited.
Oh, I can't wait to hear what you think.
Thank you for listening to Script Daddy. Script Daddy is executive produced and hosted by Carly Casey and Colin Moretz, with additional production assistance from the incredible Scott Simmock and our amazing sound mixer, Ryan Fee. Our artwork was done by Josh Alvarado.
If you love Script Daddy as much as we do, please tell your friends. Follow us on your preferred podcast platform and give us a rating and review. It really, really helps. We love you, Script Babies. For all inquiries, please email scriptdaddypodcast@gmail.com.